Hi, welcome back. So glad that you're here with me. Today, I'm going to be talking about my time in Argentina, and I will definitely have to dive into at least one of these themes in a separate video. So let's buckle up and let's get into it because it was a bit of a bumpy ride. So let's just start with the fact that getting to Argentina maybe should have been my first indicator of the type of energy that I would encounter in Argentina. I want to preface all of this just by saying Argentina was such a healing and revealing experience for me. And I know that I definitely have to go back to her, but I definitely need some time separate from her for a little while. I need that distance to be able to fully integrate all that I learned when I was there before I can go back in and go back in with new and curious eyes and energy. But yeah, let's get into it. Argentina was a time from getting there, which was such a fever dream of a travel experience, to being robbed, to being somehow in a toxic situationship that ended up with an explicit kind of ending, to being iced out by somebody who was a friend slash colleague. Like, you're going through it in Argentina. So that's just to preface. So if I'm as I'm telling the story, as I'm going through the experience and kind of reflecting and sharing, if it feels like, girly pop, where are you going with this? I just feel like throwing it out there in the beginning makes it a little bit easier to then go through as we go through it. So anyway, let's start with my fever dream travel experience. Like I said, I feel like if I had really paid attention to that and seen it as maybe a foreshadowing, I don't know that things have been done differently, but it really hindsight is 2020 now. It really feels like looking back at that was my first indicator that Argentina was going to be a time. It was going to be a bumpy road with a lot of learning curves. So I didn't fly directly. Argentina was the first stop on this trip, the first true stop that was an extended period of time, because I did stop back into Mexico, into Oaxaca, for about 10-ish days to celebrate Dia de Muertos with my loved ones, mis queridos, todos mis apapachos, if you're watching. Mis queridos, si están viendo, lo siento que no estoy hablando en español, pero entonces en inglés, así que no sé, posiblemente voy a poner subtítulos en español para que también puedan entender o compartir esta experiencia conmigo, pero vamos a ver, lo siento. Pero mando mis apapachos de todas maneras. Okay, so I stopped into Mexico, meaning that when I flew into Argentina, I flew in from Mexico. Let's start there. I get to the airport. If I can de-influence you on something, it's the airline Avianca. I don't know what that experience was, but it was not it, let me tell you. Oof. So the ticket I got included a check bag and a carry-on bag and then your personal item. And I was just gonna take my two bags. I was on board with me, my one is my personal, one is my carry-on, and my ticket through Avianca, for whatever reason, the name was slightly off. It had my middle name twice, and one was smushed with my first name, and the other one was separate. And so, because it was an international flight, I didn't really want to play around with that, and it wouldn't let me, for whatever reason, fix it online. So I decided to go into the airport a little bit early so I can go and chat with somebody at the desk. So I go, and I'm thinking it's going to be a quick question. It was such a process to get through to even get help. I finally get help, and this man is I can count on one hand the experiences that I have in my lifetime where the first impression slash encounter that I have with someone, that they just are not about me or my energy, and this was one of them. And every time it happens, it's always weird. To be clear, I don't need to be liked by everyone. Everyone does not have to like me. I don't have to be everyone's cup of tea. But it is quite rare that someone responds to my energy in such a kind of way, que me alejan, that they're arm's length. I generally just don't. That's not the energy that I carry that would really cause someone to do that. if for whatever reasons, I understand, like, I've definitely triggered a crap ton of people in my lifetime, and that's another video for another time. I learned to stop taking that personally, and a lot of times the trigger ends up being like a catalyst for their personal growth, and they become like a really beautiful versions of themselves after. But it was because I was at a like trigger of something that needed to be healed, or some type of aspect of them that they weren't yet ready to see. I understand those types of things. Like, I understand if somebody's like, no, it makes me uncomfy. Like, what your presence is making me like recognize things in myself that I'm not ready to fully give space to. That I can understand. But like a first encounter where somebody is just absolutely just by me and my energy is not like at all. This might be like maybe one of the only experiences that I have where that felt like the case. But so I'm talking to this man. I'm like asking, we're speaking Spanish. This is in Mexico, and I'm flying to Argentina. I'm telling him my situation or whatever, and then he's like looking at my bag. He's like, "Oh, you need to check that." Well, I already waited through the line, so I was like, "Whatever, I'm just gonna check this bag at this point. No, I don't have to carry it around the airport anymore because it's heavy." And so I checked the one bag, and the other bag I'm gonna take as my carry-on. He's like, "Oh, measure it." I'm like, okay, it's a book bag that I was gonna take to my personal item. And I go, okay, and I like go. He makes me go put it in the box, and it fits in the box, and he's like, okay. And then we're talking, and it seems like everything that I'm saying or doing is just like bothering this man. And at one point, I shit you not, at one point, and at this point I had been waiting in line for probably at least 20 minutes to even like speak to someone, maybe longer. But he asks me if I'm drunk. And it came out of nowhere. I was like a little bit under the weather. I wasn't feeling the best. So I was like confused, and I was like, maybe because I'm feeling under the weather, like he can kind of tell that I'm not all like 100%. But it was just such an out of pocket, out of the blue fucking question that I did not understand. And I was like, no. And then I was also like, all these interactions happening in Spanish, and I'm thinking like, oh, I know I'm tired, but I know my Spanish is like, I'm fluent in Spanish. I know that this is not the issue. And so I'm like, no. And he goes, oh, if there's a huge bottle, like a liter of hand sanitizer that's right in front of him, the kind that kind of smells like, I don't know if you've ever seen those like hand sanitizers that are really liquidy and they smell like gross rancid liquor and sometimes like tequila. He goes, oh, maybe it's the bottle. And I'm just like, but I was in the middle of a sentence. The man interrupted me to ask if I was drunk, and I was just like, sir, I just wanted to get on my flight. So anyway, I go to security, and I'm in line to go through security, and suddenly the line that I'm in gets shut down, and they send us to go to a different line to like get our bags passed through the machines, and so that's a whole process, and they make us cut other people because we were already at the machine. Like, we were already at the machine, ready to pass through the metal detectors, and they decided that that line was now shut down. Anyway, we go forward, and one of my bags gets stopped, and they have me take out everything in my bag to find a nail file. And here's the thing: I don't know if you've ever packed for a 8-month, 6-month, year, anything more than like 3 months backpacking adventure where you might be doing things like hiking, etc., etc. But like my bags were packed like Tetris. Everything fit in perfectly in such a way, and they took everything out. And so now I'm in the middle of security with my entire bag's guts just thrown out everywhere. And now I have to like hurry up and try to put it, like accommodate it all back in there. And then like they took out the nail file, like, oh, like this is it. And then they measured the thing and realized it was like, one, it wasn't like super sharp. 2, the actual file part was smaller than what I guess the limit is. So we did all of that for nothing. So anyway, fast forward, I'm still just having such a good experience. I'm in the airport, and then like some random woman comes up to me and is like, oh, would you like to take a survey about your experience? And I'm like, what? Like at this point, I'm like looking around for the cameras. Like, am I being punked right now? Like, what is happening? Anyway, fast forward. I have a stop up in Colombia before I get to Argentina. I get to Colombia, I'm starving because they didn't feed us. This is an international flight from Mexico to Argentina, but I guess maybe because it's broken up into two, they're like, huh, you don't get any food. So I'm like, okay, or drinks. They didn't even give me water. I was so thirsty. Anyway, I get to Colombia and I'm like, okay, I'm ready to eat. And again, they go through my bags, and this time they take my nail file. They take my nail file, and they take my tijeras. Like, I had tijeras for scissors, like for hair cutting, but they're hair cutting shears that were quite small that I have in my carry-on bag multiple times from Mexico to Guatemala to Belize to US back to Mexico to Colombia. O sea, like, it's gone through so many different security teams in my handbag, and Colombia, they're like, no. And so they took that, and again, but same thing, they went through my whole bag and took it all back out again. I'm just like, I just went through this process. Anyway, finally go. I ate some food. Food was naturally really expensive, and it naturally was not good. We fast forward. I finally get to Argentina. I'm in Buenos Aires, and I'm unable to like get a cab, and the cabs are expensive. It's just, as part of me exhausted, I'm like, I'm worth paying the $20 for a cab to get to this like hostel that I'm volunteering at, because at that point I was done. Oh my god. Oh yeah, and then there was this part where I was seated and the flight attendant was trying to flirt with the person next to me. It was such a weird experience. Everything about my travel experience to Argentina was already just such a weird fever dream. Like, it felt like none of it was real. Anyway, so that's just getting to Argentina. I'm in Argentina, and like pretty immediately I meet this person at a Mundolingo event, which if you've never gone, I personally love and recommend Mundolingo. It sounds like Duolingo, and a lot of times we accidentally call it that. But Mundolingo is an event where you can essentially show up in designated cities at wherever designated places for this event, and you basically put on a flag of the languages that you speak, and that's it. You mix and you mingle. It's really cool because it's a really awesome and more like immersive and authentic way to practice a language. For example, I walk around with the Mexican flag, with the American flag, and with the Brazilian flag to denote that I speak Spanish, that I speak English, and that I speak Portuguese. Naturally, they also have like Portugal and other Spanish-speaking countries, but it's also like, oh, this is where you're from, and my heritage is Mexican, so I would always ask for that one, or Ecuador. But anyway, so I meet this person like pretty shortly into my being in Argentina, and that's going to be a whole other video, because I think that deserves to be delved in more, because I think that there was a lot learned from that. But let's just, long story short, that one, he and I ended up in this like situationship for 2 weeks. Mind you, I planned to be in Buenos Aires for a month, so half of my time in Buenos Aires I spent with this person, and it's not healthy. It's not healthy, and the way that it ends is so explosive. Like, the things that he said to me, and yeah, again, that'll be a different video, but needless to say, this toxic situationship lasts about 2 weeks. I'm spending a lot of my time with this person outside of like volunteering, and the ending of it and how that all came to be is quite explosive, and it like ends with me in tears calling like a cab home at like 3-4 in the morning or something, just because I like knew I could not be there, and like this could no longer go on. And so that happens, I think, on a Tuesday or something. 2 days later, I am out with friends, and I decide my friends want to go to this bar. But at this point, I've already said no twice to every other time that I had been invited to this bar. And one of my friends, she's having not the best week. So I'm like, I've already said no twice. Like, what's the worst that could happen? Like, I know she's having a rough week. She's going to go. Like, we're in a group. What's the worst that can happen? And like, we get there, and again, there's little signs that are just like, maybe don't go, maybe don't enter. Little things like, one, it was just such a process for us to get in. 2 of our party, like that friend and another friend, get in. Like, me and the guys are kind of stuck behind. They finally like let me in, and then like one of the guys in, and then my fellow paisano, this tall Mexican man, They're like not letting him in. They're giving him such a hard time. And the energy of the place is just so off. It's just so like, it just, everything about all of the, everything about it just felt like I shouldn't be there. But I was just like, no, like we're having a good time. We're going to dance. Like we're in a group. What's the worst that can happen? I got robbed. That was the worst that could happen. And like not robbed, like held at gunpoint or anything. Thank God. Like I'm safe. It wasn't like an actual threat to my safety. More so like a pickpocketing situation. And the worst part is like I noticed pretty immediately when it happened. I took my phone and my wallet with all of my cards in it, which I normally don't carry my cards. I normally carry only one credit card because only one is an international one. The other ones I get fees on. And my debit card I almost never carry with me. That one's almost always, that's pretty much, no, that one is always when I'm traveling locked up in my backpack, like behind a little padlock, and then a locker locked up. Because I only ever take it out when I need to take out cash. And the second I take out cash, I put that back in that wallet, back in that backpack with the lock, back in the locker with the lock. Like, I don't play. Because one time I lost my debit card in Thailand and almost got stranded there and had to, that was also such a process. Different story, different time. But so like I'm diligent about my debit card, but for whatever reason, when I was in Mexico, I had left my debit card in my wallet after I had taken out cash and just like had never taken it back out and put it back where it normally is locked up. And multiple times it crossed my mind to do that. And I just kept not doing it. And at this point it's like 2 weeks into me like having it in my little wallet. And so anyway, they robbed me. My brand new phone that I found out I had less than 2 months that I got myself for this trip so I could record content and stuff because I have had the phone that I'm recording it now, I've had for 5 years. And I was like, I deserve a new phone. So they took that and then the wallet that had my debit card, both my credit cards. It didn't have very much cash in it, like my little citrine and like, I think maybe a little, my little cute bit lighter. So that's so explosive. Breakup situationship thing. 2 days later, I get robbed, and I'm in a different country, and I need new cards. I can't do anything without my cards. Luckily, like the second that it happened, after the security guards and the managers were very clearly no help and had no interest in helping us, we get a cab back to my hostel, and I immediately get onto my tablet, and I block all of my cards, which is great because I'm sure that at the end of the night after they've like taken a bunch of things. And I say this because after I went on the reviews for this, like looking for a number to contact, to kind of get in contact with somebody who's higher up to help me. All of the reviews on Google are about people being robbed at this place, like having their phones taken, having their wallets taken, and how security and the manager have no interest in helping. It very much feels a little too organized, if you know what I mean. Like their reviews on Google are so piss poor, and all of it is people talking about being robbed. If you are actual legitimate business, I feel like you'd want to tend to that. And other places within that neighborhood, one, it's a touristy neighborhood. Two, other places do things like before you leave, they have you show your phone and unlock it in front of them, basically to show that this is in fact your phone. And if they find another phone on you and also you can't unlock it, then they know you obviously pickpocketed that from someone. So it's just like a deterring kind of thing. I asked like the second that I was like I felt it taken because my watch had vibrated to say it wasn't connected to my phone anymore. If they could do that, if they could check people as they were leaving to make sure that they didn't have more than one phone, like no, I'm gonna do that here. Anyway, whoever these people are definitely were like pickpocketing a ton of people that night because they didn't try to use all of my cards until a little bit later in the night, and they tried to charge like over 100 USD for like McDonald's. A little treat for all their hard work. But so yeah, luckily I blocked on my cards, so that wasn't an issue. I changed my Google password so that my things were signed off from my phone and still tried tracking and it wasn't like, yeah. That is what it is. That was a process. I like had to try to get on the phone with the bank and stuff, but that was a whole thing. And then 2 days after that, I think like 2 days, maybe 3 days after that, I have a falling out with a colleague / friend who completely like ices me out and acts as if I don't exist and is like quite explosive, also way more demure than the breakup. And yeah, and then I like proceed to have to work with this person for like another week and a half, and I didn't exist. And yeah, so that's kind of like, these are the events. let's talk about my learnings, because if not, this is just rough for no reason. So for the first one, for that toxic situationship ending thing, okay, again, I feel like that deserves its own video. We'll dive into it more, but it felt like the end of a cyclical, like a generational trauma. Like, I felt like I was choosing differently than women in my lineage had been able to choose in the past. And so, yeah, because that entire situation as well was just so unfamiliar to me. I had never dated or been with or anything resembling that, someone who was of the nature of the person that I was seeing at that moment. But there was so much about him that reminded me of men and women that I love in my lineage, and my mother, and my grandmother, and my other grandmother's lives, that I realized for whatever reason I'd been kind of thrown into that situation. And again, I'll do that, like, I'll give it way more justice, way more depth in another video, because I feel like that deserves its own video. But yeah, after a lot of reflection, I saw a lot of those parallels and the similarities, and realized that I was ending a generational trauma, generational curse, maybe even, like, and that's, we'll dive into that another time, but that was definitely a lot to, like, think through and to process and to, like, sit with and to feel through the being rubbed. Like I said, there were so many little signs, and just intuitively I felt like I shouldn't have been there, and I ignored it because I wanted to be there for other people, and I wanted to, like, kind of appease, I guess. I'm not very much of a people pleaser. I was before, because that was just kind of one of my survival techniques. But I have not been a people pleaser for quite a long time. I've been quite distinctly, authentically me, without any care of how others perceive me, knowing that that's their pedo, that's more of a reflection of them than it is of me. But yeah, I didn't listen to my intuition, and I really should have. And I felt like that was such a big. I think that there were a lot of, same thing with this toxic situationship. There were red flags pretty immediately, and again, we'll dive into that more, but I stayed way longer than I should have, and I was only there for 2 weeks, like, in that situationship. But again, I wasn't listening to my intuition, so it really kind of felt like Argentina, Buenos Aires, was teaching me to listen to my intuition. The generational, oh my gosh, I really do. I'm excited to delve into that a bit more. But that piece was super important. It was a lot. It was heavy. It was not easy, but the idea that maybe I've been able to break a cycle and that I can begin starting a new one that's healthy and loving is very beautiful. The last one really just felt like it was a firm reminder that I am not responsible for how other people react, or for how they feel. Like, they're entitled to feel how they need to feel and react how they need to react, and I'm entitled to feel and react how I need to feel and react. Like, we're all just doing the best that we can at the end of the day with what we've been taught, with the resources that we have. And I think that was such a firm practice of not personalizing someone else's process. And I think it's easier when there's distance. I lived where I worked, obviously, because I was volunteering, so that made it a bit harder because, this person worked every day for 8 hours a day in the place that. So that made it a little bit harder to, avoid. And also, I realized it was triggering in a way because I love my grandmother. She's one of my favorite people on this earth. And the way that she processes things isn't really, it's a process. It's not healthy. She ices people out. She will not acknowledge your existence for months at a time until she feels like you've learned your lesson, essentially. So it's very, when it happens too, it can be, hers I don't feel like as explosive as his was, but it feels very, sharp in the beginning, and then just, it's just it's an interesting experience to have someone exist in a room with you and not even acknowledge your existence. And it's almost in the way of, oh, did you hear that voice, or whatever? except like not even giving that much credit, like not even acknowledging the voice. Like you could be talking to the person and they just are like you literally do not exist. And my grandmother does that, and it's sad she does it too. Most of like my grandmother does not have the best relationships with most of the family right now by virtue of the fact that she always does this. So like everyone's kind of on oust with her right now. I'm currently not. I've only ever been on oust with her once, and that was rough because I'm like one of her favorite grandchildren, which maybe you're not supposed to say, but with her generation, with my mom's generation as well, like they very clearly have favorites, and they are not good at hiding it. I don't know if they're even interested in hiding it. Like they'll just tell you that that's not true. It's mostly just like gaslighting. It's like, no, we all know. But yeah, I had never been ousted by my grandmother, and so when it happened, it was just like a really rough experience. And again, I think that that last piece for me was to not personalize it. Like I understand that my actions hurt this person, and that this person reacted the way that they felt that they needed to react in that moment with the tools that they had. And perhaps just like at the end of the day, like I'm only gonna be there for another week and a half. For him, it wasn't worth trying to like mend that relationship. For him, like the trust was gone. But I had to like really recognize and be okay with the fact that like his process was his process, and even if it was triggering and it was like it was uncomfortable for me, that I really couldn't do anything about how he needed to process or how he feels, nor was like his dealing with that something that is directly reflective of me or personal to me. Because especially after talking with a lot of friends about it, like including like folks who were there, folks definitely felt like the reaction where it was not aligned with the action that like I had like I guess set forth. But regardless, that like truly didn't matter. At the end of the day, I can't do anything about how he reacted or about how he's feeling, and he's entitled to do both of those things, to react how he needs to react and feel how he needs to feel. And I'm not responsible for those. I can only be responsible for what I learned from that moving forward, and how I try to mend that relationship. I tried to have a conversation he wasn't interested in, that's okay. But yeah, I mean, I know that I can be more intentional about my actions in the future. But yeah, Argentina. We didn't even touch Patagonia. Patagonia was a fun time. But yeah, I feel like the majority of my healing all happened in Buenos Aires. And when looking at my astrocartography, I have a line that passes near, I think Mercury actually, that passes near Buenos Aires. So that should be something we explore too, astrocartography and traveling. But anyway, I don't even really know how to wrap that up. Argentina was a time. I really do want to go back because I feel like now that I've had a bit of distance and reflected on it, like it was such, even if it wasn't easy, it was such a space of growth for me, which ultimately serves me and my highest purpose at the end of the day. Like it continues to put me in alignment. And at the end of the day, like we're all here to live this life of contrast. Like we agreed to be here to live this life of contrast, whether we kind of acknowledge that or not. And with contrast, by knowing what we don't want, it becomes so much clearer what we do want. And I think that Buenos Aires gave me the opportunity to live such contrast in a way that highlighted so much more what I am deserving of, what I do want to embrace, what I do want to listen to, what I do want to pull into my life. But yeah, thanks for going on that journey with me. That was a time. Yeah, let me know if you've had, like, this isn't the first time that I've had such intense healing experiences, but this one was like lightning speed. I felt like my Oaxaca healing experience was lightning speed, but this somehow was even more like explosive and intense. Have you ever had that? It doesn't even have to be traveling, but like just suddenly like boom, 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 events like that happen that are very clearly meant for maybe character development and for growth and for healing, but it's all just kind of happening at the same time and it's chaotic. Can you let me know in the comments? Because it's a lot, and I feel like unless you've gone through it, it's kind of hard to fully like digest and move forward with. But yeah, anyway, thanks for joining me on this journey. Let me know if you have any questions, and please, if you've been through something like this, share with me in the comments. But yeah, and if you have more questions about like this experience, I will do a video about that toxic situationship because it does deserve more. I just felt like this would be even longer if I delved into that the way that I would like to. But anyway, thank you for listening and for sharing this space with me. I hope you have the best day, and yeah, Beijing news.